You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis is brought to you by
Ray Cruz and MCF Mortgage. With a stellar reputation as an outstanding mortgage lender, Ray Cruz serves the lending needs of real estate professionals, builders, and individual homebuyers in Maryland, Washington, D.C., Virginia, Texas, California, Florida, Illinois, New Jersey, and Pennsylvania. Ray believes that integrity is the cornerstone of his business, and helping you achieve your home financing goals is his business. Located in the heart of Bethesda, Maryland, contact Ray P. Cruz today to get started. Your home mortgage or refinance options await. Call 301-761-2278 or visit raypcruz.com. Ray P. Cruz, mortgages intelligently.
For more than 20 years, I have seen Gene the Barber for my haircuts. I am proud to say that Gene the Barber is now the owner of a new shop, his own shop, Max Life Barber and Salon. Max Life is family friendly with barbers and stylists for men, women, and children. Located at 6859 New Hampshire Avenue in Tacoma Park, Maryland, Max Life Barber and Salon is now the new home of Gene the Barber. Of course, you'll get Gene's signature service, but now Gene has several barbers to choose from. Schedule an appointment today by calling 240-687-7253.
A Squared Home and Office Solutions is the go-to source for home or office network and audio-visual solutions. We can help with smart home integration, wireless networking, media rooms, security systems, and more. We will link technology to your lifestyle seamlessly. Read our reviews online. Visit homeandofficesolutions.com for more info or call 240-356-8832. A Squared Home and Office Solutions. We are home advisor screened and approved.
You're listening to Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis. Here's your host, Kurtis Cross.
Welcome to Conversations with Kurtis. I am your host, Kurtis Cross, and as always, I'm excited to be here with you today. Today, we're going to get into a great conversation, but first, I want to thank our sponsors. I want to thank Ray Cruz and MCF Mortgage, Gene the Barber, and A Squared Home and Office Solutions. Be sure to connect with me socially at Kurtis Talks on Instagram and Twitter, and of course, at www.kurtistalks.com. Also, take a listen to our other podcast, Crosstalk, the Kurtis and Paula Show, a lifestyle, love, marriage, and parenthood podcast. You'll hear all about the day-to-day matters of me and Paula, our life right in front of you. Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill, a local and national sports podcast hosted by me, along with coaches Steve Turner and Casey O'Neill. The Midnight Truck Stop and 911 Radio, both of those podcasts are hosted by Big T and the Blue Knight. You'll hear stories from truckers, 911 calls, law enforcement officers, and a host of interesting guests. All of these podcasts can be found on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, Google Podcasts, Buzzsprout. You go out there, you type in Conversations with Kurtis, you type in the Kurtis and Paula Show, you type in Take a TO with Turner and O'Neill, and we will propagate on Google. You will find us wherever you get your podcast content. Now, once again, you are listening to Crosstalk Conversations with Kurtis, and I thank you for joining today's conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, I'd like to welcome to the conversation Emma Stone. Emma is a good friend of mine. She is in the Philadelphia area. I love her to death, and hopefully she doesn't embarrass me too much because she knows some things about me, guys. So, I'm glad it's not a call-in show because they can ask you anything they want. Emma, how you doing, pretty lady?
I'm good. I'll keep some secrets.
Some. Okay, so surprise me. For those who don't know, Em and I recorded this about, 20 minutes ago, and I forgot to hit the record button. So that just means I wanted to spend a little bit more time with you. So we're starting fresh again. I want the people to know. I know this answer. Who is Emma Stone? Talk to us.
Okay. Emma Stone, not the actress.
Because someone sent me a text with her picture and said, you're going to have Emma Stone? Someone did do that.
I should have said this up front. I am sorry to anybody who came here under false pretenses. Not her.
You're just as fascinating.
Thank you. To be clear, it has happened multiple times where people think that they are going to be seeing the actress. And so I just feel like I should just be upfront about it.
Just right off the break. Just tell the people. I got you.
I am 28. I am a woman and I live in Philadelphia. I am a social worker, therapist. I do specialize in like gender and sexuality work. I have a partner. We have 2 cute dogs.
You're a doctoral candidate.
I'm a doctoral candidate. You're right.
All right. Speak
yes.
about it. There you go. All right. But we didn't get to 28 and we didn't get to Philadelphia overnight. It started, our relationship started when your cousin, my very, very good friend, Janelle, brought you over because I was probably having a cookout and we were watching boxing on TV. And I meet this teenager, Emma, and we hit it off. Is that fair to say?
Yeah, I think so.
We hit it off. We have traveled together. You have spent the night on the couch before cruises in the Bahamas. We have danced at weddings together. And hopefully those pictures don't get out because I don't want to embarrass you. Not me. It's you. I don't want to embarrass you.
Honestly, more fair.
All right. And we have this secret crush thing going on, but no one knows about that except the thousands of people who watch and listen. But I love me some Emma. She is my girl. I hadn't seen her in a few years, and I guess a month or two ago, I saw you at a social gathering that was, socially responsible in the pandemic climate.
Outside, all the things.
And we do all these big hugs, and I hadn't met your partner, until that point. I met her that day. But Emma, it's always a delight to see you. There's nothing but smiles and fun, and we reminisce and all of that. And I'll be quite honest, I've just been happy to see you go from the 14 or 15-year-old girl that I met at a boxing party to where you are now. And I look forward to the people getting to learn more about this young lady who I love. It started in Howard County. Your parents, your family is in Howard County, Maryland. You're a River Hill High School graduate.
True.
I want to talk about your summers, though. I want to talk about what happens up north, your parents, your family, just your mother and father, or is there more financial interest in it? Just your parents?
No, so my parents, just my parents. We, of course, my older sister, not the oldest, helps direct the camp, but my parents own and run a family camp, which is set up, as you could imagine, like a kids camp, except instead of going and staying in a cabin with kids your age, you go for a week at a time with your family. It's called Madamic Camp, if anybody
Y'all have found success with people traveling with their family in close quarters. You found success.
Shockingly, yes.
Right? Okay.
So you're in a cabin that has electricity and running water, to be clear. And so I think the success comes from in the morning, you're broken up into age groups. So your kids will be doing activities with kids their age, arts and crafts, archery, land sports, nature, whatever it might be. And then in the afternoon, there's a waterfront. And so we have boats and lifeguards and all these things. So it's family and also some time apart.
Okay. So the sanity piece can set in.
Exactly. And it also gives parents time to talk to other parents. And if the parents want to do activities and if they just want to sit in a lounge chair in the grass and read all day, they're welcome to do either, which is kind of cool because they know people are watching their kids for at least those 3 hours in the morning.
And you grew up in that camp. You've seen the families come and go. I'm sure some families have returned. You probably gained some responsibility. I'm guessing you helped out at the camp and all but a few of those years. And then we move out of high school. You go into college. How do you land in Philadelphia?
My best friend, her boyfriend at the time, was going to Philly for school, and she said, "Why don't you go there?" I think for her it was well, then I only have to visit one location. And I said, sure. I have no idea where I want to go. I know that I want to study psychology. So I ended up at Drexel for 4 years. I did their co-op, their internship program. So I went to school year round, which a lot of people think is kind of crazy. And then I went across the street and got my master's at Penn in social work.
So we, as you like to say, we upgraded.
Yeah.
We went to an Ivy League school. This reminds me of something I talked about on another podcast. Where are you? I wear my heart on my sleeve. What is this gap year garbage that all these kids are talking about these days? Didn't high school prepare you for? All I'm thinking is the gap year just means that they're going to go up 5% on tuition, and you missed out on your chance to pay a little bit less. Again, if you've had a tragedy. If you were not told, you're really not prepared. If for some reason you were not financially prepared, I kind of get it. To me, gap year is, I'm too lazy to go to school. I'm tired of going to school, but the cost of college will outpace your desire to go back. And I'd be willing to bet those who take a gap year, a measurable number of them, they just don't go back. School wasn't for them, which is fine. If school's not for you, I mean, Wendy's, Domino's, Papa John's, those guys didn't, graduate high school. So, I mean,
Yeah.
school doesn't have to be for everyone. But where are we finding gap years? Are they becoming more and more popular?
I don't know. And also, I think it would be interesting to look at it by like state. So, for example, Philadelphia in the city, which I know Pennsylvania, I don't know if it's the whole state, but in Philadelphia, you have to go through an application process to get into a high school of your choice,
Okay.
which I guess in Howard County, it was like you went where you were districted. That was the high school you went to. You have the option in Philadelphia to like go to your neighborhood school. Most kids don't really want to do that.
Okay.
So you can apply for like specialized high schools throughout the city. And so I wonder if in some place like Philadelphia, you see a lot less gap years because people are kind of already trained with just like you apply and then you go do it.
Right.
I don't know. I feel like gap years maybe kind of started getting popular when I was applying for college. I know there was like 10 seconds where I was like, do I do a gap year? And I like go volunteer and fill in the blank of the country at the moment.
Right.
And then I realized like, no, I just want to go to college.
If I took a year off, I wasn't going to go. I can say that.
Yeah, I feel like there is a good chance I know myself well enough, especially now at this point, to be like, it would probably be really nice to not have any work papers to write for a year.
Right. But you did the year-round thing at Drexel, which I love that you did that. You're pursuing your doctorate now. You are going to be, is it fair to say, public service? That's where you'd like to be?
Yeah.
Okay. So we're doing that. And we can't go much further. Your brother, Yuri, I did his wedding. That was a wonderful time. And it always escapes me, your sisters, their names are?
Eliana and Sophie.
I'm going to write it down right now because they would kill me. I mean, we're like Instagram buddies, and I can't remember names. What's wrong with me? All right, so Ileana and Sophie. So we did Randy and Yuri's wedding up at AVAM, the Visionary Arts Museum in Baltimore. That was a wonderfully fun time.
Amazing.
I've got some great photos from that. And the backdrop was just something. The chuppah and everything they did, it was just, it was a whole thing. And I loved it. Loved being out there for that wedding. So now we get to your counseling. And when you decided you wanted to get into psychology, when you decided you wanted to help people, you're not getting into this for the money. You're doing it because it's in your heart to help people. So like teachers, like people who get their MD, but they go to a third world country because they want to help. They don't want the big 6-figure paycheck. They want to actually do what's in their heart.
Right.
But, Emma, as you've gotten into psychology, here's the thing. It's sort of like the soldier who enlists in the army because he or she knows there's not going to be a war, and then, oh snap, there's a war. Well, that war came in March of 2020, where we call it a pandemic, and the work you signed up for got exponentially tougher. And you and I have talked off screen about parents feeling guilty about the amount of time around their kids. I'm not going to spoil that part. I want you to mention that because coming from you, I think it holds some weight. So what did that look like? You just wanted to have a private practice where you get 8 clients a day, and now, bam, you got a pandemic, and you have to learn that pandemic and learn how to counsel through that pandemic.
So I was working in a public health setting, I guess you could say. So prior to the pandemic, I had already a caseload of about 30 kids who I saw once a week. The easiest way to think about it is kind of like traditional talk therapy. They would come in the office, I would see them or their families or just their parents, which was kind of like the beauty of the work that I was doing. And then COVID hit, and not only was I then no longer able to like sit in front of kids and work with them one-on-one or in a family setting, we were on the phone or on Zoom.
Right.
After they had been on Zoom all day at school, and after, mom, dad, caregiver, whoever is having to interact with them all day. Are you doing your homework? Are you checking? Are you doing this? And it was difficult. These kind of, we've talked about this built-in time that is not always planned that people would have away from their kids or their partner was something that I don't think we all realized we needed as much as we did.
Yep.
And so when the pandemic hit and you're no longer having any of that time away, it was difficult, I think is the nice way to put it.
I think some homes may have been disrupted because of that, but I liken it to, again, let's say you have a family of four. You have a husband and wife, a partner. They have two kids, and one of the adults in that home has a 37-minute commute to work. They're listening to talk radio, or they're listening to this wonderful podcast, or whatever they're doing, and that's their time to de-stress and decompress. You think of it as rush hour and they're in traffic, but that's their time to be one with themselves. Whatever they do. They're thinking of new ideas. They're thinking about what they're going to make for dinner, where they're going to go on their next vacation. All of that removed. We didn't realize that was built. That was an actual defense mechanism from us. We're saving ourselves from ourselves because some of us didn't like who we became during that pandemic. 24/7, cooking all meals at home, being around the kids 24/7. And you said something very prolific. It doesn't mean you don't like your kids. It's just you had that time that you didn't recognize you appreciated so much by going to happy hour with your coworkers, or going to a retirement party, or going to the dry cleaners. I don't care what it is.
Yeah. And I'd push it further even to say it is okay to not like your kids sometimes because you still love them.
Right. Okay.
You can love somebody and not always like them.
Sometimes I don't like you very much, but that's not the case here because we have a like-love relationship and it just works. So no, that makes a lot of sense. And, I think some folks might feel guilty for saying those words, for thinking those thoughts, but I'm sure you have come across some of your families or some of the folks that you counsel where it's okay. We can say that to ourselves and we can build a better us and a better relationship with that person if we can identify those times where I don't like you very much, or you know what, some of that might be masculine. I don't like me very much, or the me who I am when I don't like, there's a lot to, undo here. Right. So as I mentioned to you, I've coached high school and college basketball, women's basketball. And I've loved every minute of it. We'll never go back to it. I'm a family guy and I love being with my family. But when we play defense and someone abandons their post and a helper has to come, someone has to help the helper. Emma, you signed up for this. I can't give you a free pass for wanting to get into counseling, but you didn't sign up for the bam, here's a pandemic. Now we're going to throw all these people on you. Kids are going to be in front of a screen all day. You've got to keep their attention. Parents have to do their own work and mind the kids. And now they show up to you on Zoom. I'm sure you appreciated still being able to see them, but the manipulatives, all that, you didn't have that. You were talking to people like this. Who's helping you? You're helping them, but who's helping the helper?
So up until COVID, and even, I want to be fair, into COVID, a lot of the help comes from whatever your version of coworkers looks like. Right. So even though I was a fee-for-service clinician, there was other people that were fee-for-service clinicians, and we would have, like Zoom staff meetings once a week. But I consider myself lucky because in the organization I was in, I had already formed a lot of outside connections with those people. I was able to kind of call up another therapist because you can't just talk about your job with your partner. Right. You have to keep HIPAA. You could say, I have this really difficult case. I'm feeling really frustrated. You would go to your director, those were the people that were helping. But what is happening in tandem is all of us are going through the pandemic with the people we're helping go through the pandemic.
Right.
Which means there is a fair amount of days or weeks or months where I felt like, I don't want to put this on this person because I know they're dealing with it too. Right. I don't want to, do this over here. So there's a lot of, you find your people, and that's kind of your first line. It's great if those people are also people you work with because you can kind of have an easier conversation.
Of course.
But then I think a lot of pressure, for lack of a better term, falls onto families and partners of helping people.
Sure.
I was used to, speaking of like that built-in time, it's like I would go to work and I would have 40 minutes to get home and turn my brain off from the day.
There you go.
I would have a lot easier ability to not like bring my work home with me.
Sure.
And what that looks like now is closing my laptop and walking into a different room.
Because the square footage of your home is being taken up by that work that was 40 minutes away.
Right. And my partner working in the house. So we're both working. We both have pretty high stress jobs. one of us is in the upstairs level, one of us is in the downstairs level in our individual offices, and we were very clear about wanting to do that because we want to be able to like close the door at the end of the day, and like that stays in there, and we have our living space. We're really fortunate that we can do that.
Right.
There's a lot of people in Philadelphia who have, two parents or caregivers who are working and they don't have this amount of space. Like, it's a real privilege.
Right.
But I think a lot of the supporting work and the helping work has, trickled down to my partner Cassie, or calling my parents on the phone and just like crying.
Right.
And just saying like, I love the work that I'm doing, and I can also recognize that today was a really hard day. And it
Both of
doesn't
those
mean I'm
can
not
exist.
Yeah, exactly. We live in a world of like a lot of black and white, forgetting that like gray area is the majority, and like
Right.
two things can be true. I can love my job and have a really tough day, and it doesn't mean that I'm not going to get up tomorrow and go and give 100% again. And it's my job on the days that I don't feel like I can give 100% to sit with myself and figure out what's going on.
Well, not enough people do that, and I think that let's go back to the love and like. You can love your job, and today I just didn't like today, and sometimes that looks like I didn't like who I was today. Maybe I could have handled that better, and you have some difficulties, and I think part of what we're looking at here for those who don't understand that is, we want to throw the towel in, and we certainly can't do that. I've always said that the day that I don't like going to my job every single day is maybe when I need to think about another job. But you know what? Out of 5 days a week, one of those days might not be a home run, right? It just might
Right.
not be. But those people count on you. And you're not going to stay in the job because people count on you. Stay in the job because you love the job, you love the work. You can see, when it comes to a lot of things in life, if we can see our progress, that continues to drive us. So I
Right.
imagine for you that looks like folks you work with, be it kids, be it families, where you can see the progress, you can see where it's going. And at the heart of this, you want to help. Emma, what does this look like for you moving forward? We're a doctoral candidate. Where do we see Dr. Emma Stone? What does that look like?
So when I was doing my master's, I got involved a lot more in the gender and sexuality area of social work, especially
Okay.
working with youth. Doing some like policy work for the Philadelphia school system about like transgender and gender nonconforming youth in schools. So what I'm looking at doing doctoral work wise would be kind of looking at the intersectionality between trauma, which is like, I think the hot topic for the last like 5 years, because we're finally recognizing that trauma exists in a lot of different facets, not just the trauma that for a long time was like PTSD trauma,
Right.
mostly looked at as like veterans and people coming back for more, which is so valid, but it's
Completely legit. Yeah.
kind of branched out into realizing that that can exist in a lot of different ways. Looking at that intersectionality with LGBTQIA, but really mostly focusing on transgender and gender nonconforming youth. So it would look like in my like 5-year, 10-year vision board goals.
Sure.
It would probably be a pretty even breakdown of half education and half field work. When I was doing my master's program and my undergrad program, there was so little that was taught in regards to gender and sexuality that I had to do a lot of my own work to learn about it. And I think we kind of need to make a shift because this isn't something that's going away. In the same way that we had veterans who were coming home from war. And we said, okay, well, these things that are happening aren't going away. How can we better support these people? Instead of just saying, well, eventually they'll get better.
Right.
We said, what can we do? And so I think, along that same narrative, kids who are going through traumatic events in regards to gender and sexuality aren't going away. So what can we do to better help ease those transitions in society?
And so we have what I will call muddy waters all across the country when it comes to addressing these issues amongst our youth.
Yes.
And at what point do we need to pick up that conversation? At what age, in what grade do we pick up? Because there is a lot of controversy around that, be it, pronouns, be it bathroom usage, be it how these children or these students are addressed. I know teachers now who must address students by their preferred name. And I'm not going to take a position on that. I will take a position on, I know some specific instances in specific school districts where you are to address a student by their name, their preferred name, but their parents can't know about it because it's a secret from their parents. Now, that's where I take a position because I believe as minors, while there are rights, certainly, I don't know that we're doing the kid a service by allowing them to just pick and choose where they want to be in that moment, but they're not getting that support from home because they don't want the parents to know. And maybe the parents can't know because the parents would not be supportive. And that's another conversation. This is very difficult to navigate for administrators, for school systems, for counties, for districts, for teachers. And then, you might have a student who's not getting supported or doesn't feel comfortable. It's like it goes along the race lines as well. You might, during Black Lives Matter, during January 6th, you might have students who can't come home and feel comfortable having that conversation with their parents because there's not a tolerant support system at home.
Right.
This is like 3-4 episodes of a podcast, but can we shrink it down? Where are you with all of this?
Yes. So I'm going to do my best to answer. I feel like I do have to put the, the caveat of I'm answering only for myself. My views are my own. I'm not a medical professional. I want to, before people potentially get upset for whatever reason. So in the city of Philadelphia, part of the work that we did with this legislation, this policy work, I should say, was talking to transgender and gender nonconforming youth about what feels safest for them.
Okay.
So as much as I want to have an opinion about what I think is good or not good or right or wrong, what it comes down to is I have never lived a day of my life where somebody has called me the wrong names or the wrong pronouns or not respected who I am in that regard. So it's hard for me to say, this is what I think is right, this is what I think is wrong. What I will say is, it's very rare that you have a child who doesn't want to share information with their parents when they think they're going to be supported in that. Okay. So when it comes to things like, this is the name I want to use at school, there are study after study after study that show if a child has one place, just one, where they're respected for who they are, not who they're viewed to be, their likelihood of self-harm, of attempts of suicide, of suicidal completion, of any of these things goes down exponentially.
Makes a whole bunch of sense.
In my training that I've done with teachers in the school district, there has been conversations around, well, what if they're just joking around? How do I know this is serious? And kind of like what I say is like, I think it's rare. I won't say it never happens because I don't know that. It's rare that you have a kid who does that as their attention-seeking behavior. Okay. It takes a lot for a kid to go to a person in authority and say, I know that you have a name on this attendance sheet, or what, I guess that's what they used when I was in school. I don't know, on your computer, whatever they used.
Let's not act like you're in your 40s or 50s, okay? Times haven't changed that
much.
We
had the attendance sheet where they wrote your grades.
Yes,
like, I don't know what Classroom Ninja
book.
is like a new thing. I don't know. I'm like kids who are like, I got Ninja bucks. I don't know any of that.
They have like Canvas. They have all these different things. Right. You go online. I can go online and look at my kids' grades up to the minute. Boy, I'm glad they didn't have that when I was in school.
I was going to say, honestly, that's what we should be talking about. That's more detrimental than this kid wanting to use a different name.
Oh, boy.
But I digress. We won't get into that. That's not my area of expertise. I think that if you're an educator or a therapist or a person who works in a school in any of those capacities, and you realize there's a kid who says, this is the way I feel and I want this to be here and I don't want you to tell my parents, that is where the conversation begins. Okay. hey, I'm happy to do that. Can I ask why? I'm not going to tell mom and dad if you don't want me to, or whoever, but I'm curious. Like, I think we need to start with curiosity, because what it comes down to is nobody ever, to a certain age, never asked me, like, how do you know you like boys? Because people just assumed that I'm a girl, so I would like a boy. Nobody made me, like, prove it in the same way that a lot of times we're asking people who don't fall into that binary or don't fall into the majority to, like, prove it.
Okay.
Right.
No,
I don't know if that really answers the question, but I think, as you said, this is like, it could be a 10-hour long conversation. And by the end of those 10 hours, new things would have happened that would have made us have to go back.
Right.
But I think it's all about, it's just respect. The same way, like, treat somebody how you'd want to be treated.
That's your answer. So is that the answer I was looking for? Absolutely, because it's your answer. I want to go into a different direction now.
Okay.
And, because you and I share an affinity. You don't like men as your preferred romantic partner.
Right.
I am black. I won't suggest that being gay is the same as being black. And I'll tell you why. Because I can't walk down the street and know that you're gay.
Right.
Right. You can walk down the street and know that I'm black.
Right.
I'm not saying that my plight is any more in depth other than the fact that I'm older than you, so I've lived it longer, but my plight is not more important to me than your plight is to you. I'm disappointed in this conversation that I even have to call it a plight, because it shouldn't be a plight. It shouldn't be a soapbox that either of us have to stand on.
Right.
But there are prejudices against you. There are prejudices against me. There are other prejudices against you. You're Jewish. So they are, and you know what? They're not prejudices against you. There's ignorance against you. There's ignorance against me. Let's call that what it is.
Yeah.
Emma, where are we in this country? We saw January 6th. We saw an administration who was non-tolerant. I have likened it to this, and I've spoken about it many times. A couple things I will say is January 6th happened because it didn't happen. What I saw was a white America that felt like white supremacy was being challenged and they wanted to protect that. What I saw was not 45 getting elected despite who he is. I saw him get elected because of who he is.
Yeah.
I saw him have a voice for people who were too cowardly to actually have that voice, but now they had someone in a position of power who would say it for them.
Right.
What I also know, and that I've said on several different podcasts, is if you take my counterpart in a white skin who is doing not even as well as I'm doing, that male counterpart wouldn't trade skin with me and wouldn't trade my life for the world, because there is a shield of skin that white America lives behind that affords them certain privileges that I won't say that you take advantage of those privileges, but you wake up with them every day, Emma. Just like I wake up being a male, so I have certain advantages that you have. Put me in your chair now, and you're making 81% of what I'm making, right? Just because I'm a male. Right. Where are we with that conversation, and why are we here?
Well, if I had that answer, we would be much better off as a society.
Right.
Where are we at with that? Where we're at is like not good. We've gotten to a point, I think, where there is a certain subset of our population who was there prior to the former president being elected, who is still there now. It's not like just because he was elected, all of a sudden people were like, this is a good idea. It was like, oh, so we're giving permission for me to do this now.
Thank you.
And I think that my frustration, especially when it comes to white people, being a white person, I know maybe some people watch this, most people I assume just listen. You can have a hard time and be white. Nobody is telling you you can't have struggles. Nobody is telling you that you can't, live in poverty, any of these things.
Right.
But the fact that you're white means that you already have a leg up.
Right.
It doesn't mean things can't be bad, too.
Mm-hmm.
In the same way, and not to, be too superficial with an example, but I think that it is an easier way to understand it is after, I can't believe this is the example I'm going to use, after Kim Kardashian got robbed in Paris.
Mm-hmm.
And people are like, well, she's a celebrity. She should be fine. She can replace all of this. She can go to therapy. She can have the best therapist. Like there was very quickly this whole idea of, for some reason, because something traumatic happened to her and she has wealth, it means that it shouldn't have been a traumatic event.
Right.
And so I think that there's two sides. Everybody can have a plight, if that's the term we want to use. Everybody can have something that makes their life a little bit harder, but we have gotten so far away from the basis and understanding of, like, I walk down the street, people look at me as a white female who they're assuming is dating or married to a man.
Right.
The privilege I have is overwhelming. Are you kidding me? The moment, like, I wear my Hebrew name on my necklace, I've worn it every day for over a decade. Not because I want people to say, like, oh, so you're Jewish, but because it's not something I try to hide either.
No, you want 8 days of Hanukkah. That's what you want.
Really, what it comes down to is I want a lot of gifts.
Okay, there you go.
And that's why I purposefully made sure to be in a relationship with somebody who's not Jewish, so then I also get Christmas gifts.
You know what? You're a piece of work there, young lady. Y'all better not believe that. Emma's the salt of the earth, I can tell you that.
So I think that what it comes down to is some days when I realized how much work we still have to do as a society,
mm-hmm.
It feels crushing.
Right.
Especially when I look at the work that the white majority needs to do. I'm not saying not everybody needs to do work. I'm not saying there aren't people all over who have stuff that, they need to be better at.
Sure.
But I think that it has to start somewhere. And for some people, that is the overwhelming part. I'm only one person. What can I do?
Right.
It's like, well, the first thing you can do is just recognize your privilege. That is the absolute minimum. It's not saying you have to even then take a further step. But if we can at least get to the area of recognition,
right,
then the other pieces at least have the potential to also move.
Mm-hmm.
Where so much of us right now are just like, well, my life's hard too.
Right.
Get over it.
That recognition piece, that recognition piece, I think you're 100% correct. And we have to do the work to make sure that we all walk this walk together. And, you have a bunch of folks who say, well, all lives matter, not just Black lives matter. And for those who haven't heard, I feel like it's such a cliche term, but for those who don't matter, if you go into a neighborhood, yes, all homes matter. But the house that's on fire is where the fire trucks are going.
Right.
The fire women, the firemen, they're going to the home that's burning. And that home's been burning for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
And, one of these days I'm going to get on this podcast and I'm going to tell a story that not many people know. And it is a story that I'm going to tell from the summer of 2020 and how my home and my neighborhood changed because of conversations that I've had. And for those of you who want to know, this podcast always ends with thank you, Khadijah. And Khadijah is someone who helped me to get to where I am with that story. That's another story for another podcast. I'd like to start to wrap this up. I need to know about this partner. I met her for a few minutes when we were coming and going at a social event, and she needs to meet with my approval, so I need to know who she is. So tell me about this young lady.
So Cassie is also non-binary.
Mm-hmm.
So Cassie uses they and them pronouns, which is really hard for people to adjust to. I am fortunate because Cassie is a very understanding person in that I think a lot of people in the world, when you see Cassie, a lot of people would assume female. And so Cassie is a very patient person. Sometimes it's easier to just use Cassie's name than to use they and them if your brain is not used to it. But Cassie and I have actually known each other for like 6 years.
Okay.
What you will understand and will find humorous. I met Cassie through Chelsea.
You know what? I think, did I know that? I don't know if I knew
Chelsea is
that.
an ex-partner, everybody,
Right.
just because
Yeah, they don't
people
know.
will be like, "Who is Chelsea?"
Or they're thinking, Curtis's daughter? Because that's my daughter's name.
No,
So yes.
not through that Chelsea.
Right, yeah, your ex partner. Yes, I
Yeah.
remember Chelsea, of course. So you met Cassie through Chelsea, yeah?
Yeah. And then we reconnected during COVID. Cassie had been in a relationship that we actually introduced Cassie to that person. So it's a real interesting Venn diagram.
Okay.
Anyway, moral of the story is we both were out of those relationships and right at the beginning of COVID kind of reconnected. I think a lot of people at the beginning of COVID were kind of like, okay, who do I live somewhat near, who I care about and want to check in on, and if they need anything, I can be there. And Cassie was one of those people. And so we reconnected at the beginning of COVID, and both were like, so are you seeing anybody? More so like safety wise, not like relationship wise.
Right, no, of course, of course.
Like, do you want to hang out outside 6 feet apart?
Right.
It's like funny to think back on. And then we officially started dating, I guess, at the end of July of 2020.
I guess that's enough time. I guess.
And then in typical COVID fashion, by like December, Cassie moved in, and it's almost terrifying that I'm so happy. It's like one of those things where on a daily basis, I'm like, should I just like pick a fight? Because this seems to be going like too well.
Well, don't worry. Those days are coming at some point. They're coming at some point. So you decided to do the craziest and most fearful thing imaginable. You'll meet someone during COVID when you can't be with them and then say, hey, let's move in together. So craziest thing imaginable, but right now it's working. So I love it. Just force that time together. I mean, you guys got from July to December, you guys got 5 months of what should have taken probably 2.5 years because it's every single day, right?
It is really one of those things that, I mean, I think I'm really fortunate. If I hadn't known Cassie already for like 4 years leading up to it as like a friend, I would have been like, absolutely not.
Right. Okay.
But we have conversations probably about once a week. That's like, well, if we could go for a year without pretty much seeing anybody else,
right,
we were going to find out really quick whether or not we saw a future here.
Right. Well, it's just an accelerated time frame. Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, I mean, it would normally take 2-3 years and then maybe blah, blah, blah. But again, when you're around, when you don't have that commute to work, when you don't have happy hour, when you're not traveling to go see your parents by airplane or whatever, was the camp closed in the summer of 20?
Yeah.
Okay. All right. So you didn't have that to go to.
One of those things that Cassie pretty much met you at before meeting John.
Well, yeah, she did, I guess, right?
Yeah.
Oh, how about that?
Because
all right.
When you're dating during COVID and before there was vaccines or anything, it was like, well, we're not going to go see anyone. You can meet people over FaceTime, but you know my uncle, he's not like a FaceTime guy.
Right.
So finally, for Hanukkah, I was like, well, hi, we've been dating for 1.5 years. This is the person that I want to spend my life with. Here you are. I hope you all like them. See you later.
And if they don't, it's okay because they're not living in those 4 walls.
Right.
So that's okay too.
Yeah.
Wow. This is great. Emma, when are you going to be back down here?
Well, we just decided safety-wise to not go on family vacation. So we're pretty open.
Okay. All right.
We have no real plans to go anywhere, but also would love to come visit.
Well, keep in mind, you're telling the podcast world this, so I got to make you stick to it if you're saying this to me.
Please, I have an at-home COVID test. I'll go get tested and we'll come visit.
All right. Oh, this has been fun. Emma, you know, I've always been a fan. I've always
Ditto.
loved me some Emma. We met. You were on the couch. We watched boxing. We go to the Bahamas. We do some unspeakable things. Maybe didn't leave the Bahamas the way that we found it, but hey, it's okay. You know, no
So
one knows.
before we wrap up, I do need to thank you, and I'm going to thank you in front of all of these people who are listening.
Look, I just want you to know before you do that. Hold on.
Okay.
As I've gotten older, I've gotten emotional. So I hope you're not going to move me to emotion here. So just do whatever you got to do.
Oh, can I get emotional?
Please do.
So, as we've noted, we have traveled together, and at some of the hardest parts in my life, ending my previous relationship, I thought back to an evening that you and I spent with, of course, our cruise goers, in what is it called? The Captain's Lounge or whatever that thing is.
The Diamond Lounge, yes.
Sure, I knew you would know it.
Because I've got status on all these cruise ships, you know.
Please. Humble brag, I love it. My cruise ship status. And we sat there and I was like, yeah, no, I'm going to get married. And you were like, yeah, but you're not yet. And I was like, but I'm gonna. And you were just like, well, whatever you want to do that's going to make you happy, you should do. But I just want you to be prepared that has a chance of not happening.
Okay.
And I was like, you're rude. Who says that?
Okay.
But looking back on it, it was like one of the most helpful things I think anybody has ever said to me.
Really?
And pretty much what it came down to for me, as you can tell, I've gone through a lot of therapy. I'm not only just a therapist.
Okay.
Is this idea of like, you gave me permission without knowing that I needed it to like view my life as a potential of having like different paths. Because at that point in time, I was so set on just like, I'm happy, this must be the answer.
Okay.
And everybody just was like, okay, Emma's happy, great, this is the answer. And I never had a person who just like questioned that really for a while.
Okay.
And I just look back on it, and at this point in my life, I'm like, I think it's one of those things that I look back on and it was very moving to me, even the further away that I get from it. And I appreciate you not just being the person who's like, you're happy, great, let's move on.
Right.
It's like there's other things there, and I don't think enough people do that. So I'm going to publicly thank you for that.
Well, maybe it's a fault sometimes. I'm that person. I'm glad it worked out well in this instance. Emma, as I've gotten older, and I was younger then, that was probably 10, 12 years ago, I don't know.
Yeah.
You know, I have recognized that the price we pay, the rent we pay for being on this earth, the service, blah, 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 and Maya Angelou and all that. But, you know, we have to help each other. And I'm not suggesting that I knew then that could be of help to you. What I'm saying is we have to live a life where we're humble. We have to live a life where our footprint goes beyond just what serves us.
Yeah.
Emma, I love people. I'm not a people person. I don't like crowds and all that, but I love people. The Godelsky family has meant so much to my evolution as a businessman that anyone I come into contact with who's in contact with that Godelsky family is part of whom I consider near and dear to me. Sometimes it's important to be able to get in touch with somebody who can get in touch with somebody. And if we were brought to each other through Janelle, through Yuri, through Randy, through, hold on, Eliana or Sophie, because I wrote it down this time, then that's why we're here. Do we explain why? Do I know why? No, but whatever God you believe in put you and me in that same space at that time. And I guess that's what it was supposed to happen.
Yeah.
But those moments are not over. I live for the day where you tell me something that I can take on with me. And I'm sure you've already given me an example that maybe I don't recognize yet. I'm glad I was able to be that person in that moment for you when we were 1,000 miles from home in the middle of some deep blue sea that we can't even tell you what coordinates we were at. But I'm glad it worked. It was the Diamond Lounge, though. We know that. It was the Diamond Lounge.
We know
it was either that or the Viking Crown Lounge, because there are two lounges I go to.
Oh, gosh, I don't know. There was a nice couch. That doesn't narrow it down, I'm sure.
That does not narrow it down at all, but it was where we were, and that is a proverbial place that I hope we find ourselves in again, of course. Emma, I'm gonna ask you to go backstage, and then when I do that, I'm gonna wrap this thing up, and then you and I are gonna have some talk that the people don't get to see. All right?
Deal.
All right, Emma. We'll see you soon. Hold on a second, dear. Ladies and gentlemen, that will do it for this episode of Conversations with Kurtis. Be sure to connect with me socially at Kurtis Talks on Instagram and Twitter, www.kurtistalks.com. You can always email me with your podcast ideas. And if you'd like to be a guest or know of someone who should join the conversation, just send an email to Kurtis and Paula, that's Kurtis with a K, at gmail.com. Don't forget to check out our podcast family, The Kurtis and Paula Show, Take It to Yo with Turner and O'Neill, and of course, The Midnight Truck Stop and 911 Radio. You'll find our family of podcasts just about anywhere you get your podcast content. Thanks for joining today's conversation. Thank you to Emma Stone, our guest. Feel free to spread the word. And as always, thank you, Khadijah. We will see you next time.
Crosstalk, Conversations with Kurtis can be heard on iHeartRadio, Spotify, Apple Music, and just about anywhere podcasts can be found.
From Washington, D.C. to Ocean City, Woodbridge to Columbia, Richmond to Virginia Beach, the hottest DJs are right here. The Mid-Atlantic Professional DJ Association.
Dynamic DJ Entertainment, the most experienced professional DJ service in the DMV. For 35 years, our DJ talent has been the energy behind more than 14,000 events. If you're planning your wedding, school dance, corporate event, Sweet 16, or any event, our talented team has the right mix of music and MC skills to bring the energy and turn any event into an epic event. In 35 years, our DJs have performed in front of more than 2 million guests in 26 states. Our services include dynamic DJ talent, karaoke, giant games, atmospheric effects, movie nights, and more. Contact us today and let's make your next event an epic event. Dynamic DJ Entertainment. Visit thepartybeginsnow.com or call 301-942-4500 to get the party started.